All right, welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Absolutely. Always ready to dig in.
Great. Well, today we are diving into some pretty big changes happening over at MSNBC.
Yeah, definitely some interesting developments.
So Rashida Jones, the current network president over there, she's decided to step down.
Yep. Big news.
And they've got this article here from the Times of India that lays out the whole story.
Oh, great source.
Yeah. And we really want to kind of look closely at what this all means, for MSNBC, especially, right, with this whole spin-off thing that's, kind of looming on the horizon for them.
Right.
And, it's pretty significant, right?
Okay.
And this is, Rashida Jones. I mean, she made history as the first Black executive to lead a major U.S. TV network.
Yeah, a major figure in the industry for sure.
So yeah, I mean, this is a big deal.
No question.
So let's start with like the basics, kind of the details from the article, right?
Okay, yeah, sounds good.
So it says, right, that Jones has been at MSNBC for about 4 years now.
Okay.
And that she's stepping down to, quote, pursue new opportunities.
Yeah, pretty standard language, I guess.
Yeah, sounds pretty typical, right? For these kinds of announcements. But I guess what do you think?
Well, on the surface, it does seem pretty standard.
Right.
But, when you think about it, the role of a network president, that's not just any executive position, right?
Right.
Especially someone like Jones, who's had a really visible impact.
Right.
I mean, it always, raises questions. It's a pretty big deal when they decide to leave.
So, I mean, what exactly does a network president do?
Well, think of them like a conductor leading an orchestra.
Sure.
Right. I mean, they set the tone, they choose the players, they decide which pieces get played, how they get played.
Right.
I mean, they're responsible for the entire sound of the network.
Yeah.
Everything from like that big picture strategy all the way down to, the everyday programming choices.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So when that conductor decides to, leave the podium, you kind of have to stop and wonder what kind of music we're going to be hearing next.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, okay, but if Jones is leaving to, pursue other opportunities, I mean, wouldn't that suggest that things are going well at MSNBC?
That's a good question.
I mean, why leave a successful position?
Yeah, that's where the timing of it all gets interesting.
Okay.
Because it just so happens to coincide with Comcast's plans to spin off its cable TV networks, including MSNBC, into a separate company.
Right.
Which is often called SpinCo.
Right, SpinCo.
So spin-offs are a strategic move for companies. It's kind of like a parent bird kind of nudging a fledgling out of the nest,
So to make them fly on their own?
Exactly, to make them fly on their own.
Right.
Sometimes, these companies get too big.
Right.
And it's better to let certain divisions kind of operate independently.
Right.
Gives them more focus, more flexibility.
Okay.
But, that transition period can be rocky.
Sure.
It requires a leader who can really navigate all those uncertainties of being a newly independent company.
Right.
And make tough decisions.
So are you thinking then that maybe Jones wasn't the right fit for that kind of, high stakes transition?
It's certainly possible. Or maybe, she saw it as a good time to step back.
Okay.
Let someone else take the reins for this next chapter.
Gotcha.
I mean, either way, it's a pretty big shakeup.
Right.
At MSNBC.
So the article mentions that Rebecca Cutler will be stepping in as the interim president. And it says that she's currently the senior VP of content strategy, and that she was actually recruited by Jones back in 2022.
Oh, interesting.
So what do you make of that?
Well, that's a detail worth noting, I think.
Okay.
Because bringing in someone from within the company, especially someone that Jones herself handpicked,
right,
could signal a desire for some kind of continuity.
Okay.
It suggests that they're looking for someone to kind of continue the direction that Jones set.
So maybe not a radical shift in direction just yet.
Well, it's too early to say for sure, but there's this quote from Mark Lazarus.
Okay.
Who's going to be the CEO of SpinCo.
Right.
And it's interesting. He praised Jones for her leadership.
Oh, okay.
And he said that, quote, MSNBC is well positioned for the future.
Okay.
So it seems like he's confident in the foundation that she built.
Right.
And he believes that MSNBC is ready to thrive independently.
Okay, well, Well, that all sounds pretty optimistic, I guess.
Yeah.
But what does that even mean, to be well-positioned for the future? I mean, the media landscape it's constantly changing, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And it's a tough business to be in these days.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And for MSNBC specifically, I mean, those challenges are kind of amplified,
Okay.
because their core audience leans progressive.
Right.
Which, puts them in direct competition with other players in that space.
Sure.
So they've got to figure out how to stand out.
Right.
Especially now that they're facing, the added pressure of going solo.
It's kind of like being in a band that just went independent.
Exactly.
You've got all the creative freedom, but then you've also got to go find your own gigs, manage your own finances,
Exactly.
Build your own fan base.
You got to find your niche.
Right.
You got to stay relevant.
Right.
And most importantly, connect with your audience in a way that really resonates.
Right.
It's a tough balancing act.
Yeah.
No question.
It really is. So what are some of those specific challenges that you think MSNBC might face in this new landscape?
Yeah.
You mentioned competition.
Right.
But what else is kind of, on their plate?
Well, for starters, I mean, they're facing the same, headwinds as all traditional media companies are these days, right?
Mm-hmm.
The rise of streaming on-demand content.
Right.
I mean, cable viewership it's on the decline.
Right.
People, especially younger generations, they're getting their news from digital sources now.
So it's not enough to just have a cable channel anymore.
Right.
They need a strong online presence too.
Exactly. And it's not just about, having a website or posting clips on social media.
Right.
It's about creating content that's specifically for those platforms.
Okay.
Experimenting with different formats, engaging with viewers in a way that feels authentic, relevant.
Right.
All of that.
And that's on top of producing their regular programming for cable? It sounds like a lot.
It is. And let's not forget, the financial pressures of going independent too.
Right.
They'll have to generate their own revenue.
Right.
Which means attracting advertisers.
Right.
Potentially, exploring subscription models, making sure they're running a tight ship.
Right.
All of that.
And all of this, I mean, while still trying to maintain their journalistic integrity.
Right.
And stay true to their mission.
Exactly. I mean, it's a tricky situation, right?
Yeah.
They can't just chase clicks, sensationalize stories.
Right.
I mean, they need to find a way to balance, their commitment to quality journalism.
Right.
With the realities of the digital age.
It sounds like a tightrope walk.
Yeah, it is.
So how do you see Jones's departure fitting into all of this?
Yeah.
Could it actually be an opportunity for MSNBC?
It's possible, yeah. Sometimes a change in leadership, especially during, a period of transition like this, can bring fresh perspectives.
Okay.
A willingness to, shake things up.
Yeah.
It could be a chance for them to reevaluate their strategy, try new things, really double down on their digital presence.
Okay. But on the flip side, I mean, couldn't it also create uncertainty?
Oh, sure.
Disruption?
Yeah, absolutely.
At a time when they need stability.
There's always that risk, yeah.
Yeah.
And let's not forget the fact that, Jones was a trailblazer.
Right.
I mean, she made history as the first Black woman to lead a major U.S. TV network.
Right.
That kind of representation, it matters.
Right.
And her departure could, have an impact on diversity and inclusion within the organization.
Right. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how they address those concerns, moving forward.
Absolutely, yeah. It'll be interesting to see how they handle, the spin-off itself, too.
Okay.
I mean, there can be, some unexpected benefits to striking out on your own,
Oh, okay. How so?
Well, for one thing, they won't be beholden to Comcast's corporate interests anymore.
Okay. Right.
They'll have, more autonomy.
Okay.
To make decisions that are in the best interest of, MSNBC specifically.
Gotcha.
Without having to worry about, fitting into a larger corporate strategy.
So they could be more nimble, more responsive to changes in the media landscape.
Exactly. They could experiment with new formats, target different audience segments.
Okay.
Take risks that they might not have been able to take.
No.
Under Comcast's umbrella.
Right. So it's kind of a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
More freedom.
Right.
But also more responsibility.
More risk, for sure.
More risk.
Yeah, it's a high-stakes gamble, but it could also be their chance to, reinvent themselves.
Right.
And become, a truly dominant force in the new media landscape.
That's a pretty exciting prospect.
Yeah.
What about Jones, though? What do you think her legacy will be at MSNBC?
I think she'll be remembered as a leader who, faced some extraordinary challenges, right?
Okay.
I mean, the news cycle during her tenure was incredibly turbulent.
Right.
A global pandemic,
right.
Political polarization, social unrest, you name it.
It's a lot.
It was a lot. And yet, MSNBC thrived under her leadership.
Okay.
I mean, they achieved record viewership.
Sounds like she kept the ship steady through some pretty rough waters.
She did. And she also, made significant strides in diversifying the network's talent pool, their programming.
Okay.
It wasn't just about optics.
Right. Right.
It was about reflecting the changing demographics of the country.
Right.
And amplifying voices that had been, traditionally marginalized.
That's an important part of her legacy too.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder what kind of leader MSNBC will need, going forward to continue that progress and navigate this next chapter.
That's the $1 million question, isn't it?
Yeah.
What qualities are going to be essential for the person who takes the helm, right? It's going to require a really, really unique combination of vision, adaptability, and perhaps most importantly, a deep understanding of, this evolving media landscape.
And maybe a bit of that gambler spirit too.
Definitely. They'll need to be willing to take risks,
Right.
Calculated risks, embrace innovation, and adapt quickly to the ever-changing demands of the audience. It's going to be fascinating to watch.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Rashida Jones's departure and the future of MSNBC, what stands out to you as the most important takeaway for our listeners?
For me, it's the recognition that the media landscape is in constant flux. And even, established institutions like MSNBC, they're not immune to those forces.
It's a reminder that we can't take anything for granted, right?
Exactly. And it highlights the importance of, critical thinking, media literacy, and being conscious consumers of news and information.
Which brings us to our final thought-provoking question for you, our listener. Given everything we've discussed about the challenges, opportunities facing MSNBC,
right,
what kind of leadership do you think will best equip them to not just survive, but to thrive in this new media era?
It's a tough question, but an essential one.
It is.
And the answer, well, it might surprise us all.
Indeed. Yeah, it does. It makes you think about what it takes to really lead in an environment like that.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, you need more than just understanding programming or, having a good news sense.
Right.
It's about being able to see what's coming next.
Yeah.
And embrace new technologies, all that. And I mean, really, really connect with audiences, but in a way that feels authentic and engaging.
Right. It's you need to be a visionary, a strategist, and a tech enthusiast.
Yeah, exactly. All rolled into one. And, you got to be the kind of leader who can inspire their team.
Right.
Especially in times of uncertainty and change.
Right. Because I mean, let's be honest, the next few years are going to be a roller coaster for the media.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. A wild ride, for sure.
So speaking of that, I mean, what about the spinoff, right? Do you think that will make it easier or harder for MSNBC to adapt and evolve?
It's hard to say for sure. I mean, on the one hand, being independent, that could give them a lot more flexibility.
Okay.
To experiment, and take some risks.
Right.
They won't be, under that larger corporate structure.
Right.
So they can move a lot quicker, a lot more decisively.
So it's kind of like a speedboat versus a cruise ship.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. They can change course easier, explore new waters. But, on the flip side, they'll also be dealing with more financial pressures.
Right.
More competition. They'll need to be really, really smart about, how they're using their resources.
Right.
How they're building their brand, in a really crowded marketplace.
So it's a trade-off then.
It is.
More freedom, more agility, but also more risks, more responsibility.
Exactly.
Right.
And it'll be really interesting to see how they manage to balance all of that.
Yeah. I guess only time will tell.
Right.
But it's definitely a turning point for MSNBC, that's for sure. And it actually makes me think about something you said earlier about media literacy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In this day and age where we're just bombarded with information.
Right.
It's more important than ever to be, critical thinkers,
Right.
to be really careful about the news we're consuming.
Right.
We can't just take in everything that's thrown at us,
Right.
We got to be aware of biases, fact-check information, consider all the different perspectives.
It's like being a detective almost.
Exactly.
Gather the evidence, weigh the facts, and then draw your own conclusion.
Exactly. And that's especially true when it comes to news and information that can, shape how we see the world,
Right.
how we make decisions.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Rashida Jones leaving MSNBC, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from this conversation?
I hope they come away with a sense of curiosity,
Okay.
and a desire to really engage more deeply with the news, with the media landscape. I mean, it's a complex world. It's always changing.
It is.
But it's fascinating too.
Yeah.
And the more informed we are as consumers of news, the better off we'll be.
I couldn't agree more. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the future of MSNBC.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's a story that's still unfolding, so, definitely stay tuned. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a topic that I'm sure will get you thinking.